welcome to Ellis Mowers. We are doing a Troy Bilt Horse riding mower this time. It has the special surprise under the hood. This is a 46-inch. This is kind of the top of the line Troy Bilt, so to speak, that you could get probably in around, I don't know, 2010-ish. It's got the awesome Kohler Courage engine on it. You can sense my sarcasm on that. This one was made, let's see, 2009, 8/28/2009. So yeah, probably a 2009 model tractor. It's the SV610, the 21 horsepower single cylinder. I don't really like single cylinder engines above about 17.5 horsepower because that's pushing a lot of horsepower out of one cylinder. Of course, the displacement in cars and whatnot shows that, you know, there's a lot, you can pull more power out of one cylinder, obviously. But for small engines, air-cooled engines, that's asking a lot, at least in my opinion. You didn't really start seeing 20 and 21 horsepower single cylinders here, except in the past few years. You can see that this has got a bunch of oil leak going on right around the sump cover, as always, right around the valve cover, as always, for these things. This bolt and this bolt were loose, and so that's where most of my oil leakage was coming from. And get this, check this out. This motor is rocking on the frame. At least maybe I can do it for you. I know how I can show you though. Oh, because I got the drive belt on, that's why. I got the park brake on, it doesn't have any restrictions on it. Look at that. Just rocking on the frame. I don't think the frame's broken, I just think the frame bolts need tightening up. But I can show you that it turns over. There's 0 oil in it, so I'm not going to run it obviously, but you can see that it turns over. It's got compression. I have sprayed carb cleaner in it and it will fire. I just don't want to run it like it is right now with all that rocking going on the motor, on the brackets there. So apart from that, I'll show you one thing I've already done off camera, and that was I already redid the positive wire because the positive wire for the battery was split at the end, so I just put another one on there, married it to the existing wiring harness, so nothing really big there. One thing I have noticed, I had to take the headlights off of it because I don't know if it's something with the switch. It's not draining the battery, so I'm not really worried about it. But what it's doing is the headlights are on all the time, even with the switch off. And this doesn't have a separate headlight switch. It's one of them integrated ones where they're on all the time. But as you can see, I got a little bit of play in the steering as well, just from where the tires have been low. That's pretty typical among newer Troy Bilt mowers, I think. You can see a little bit of play in the steering right there. I wonder if I could tighten that up a little bit. Not terribly worried about it. It'll probably get better whenever I put the tires on it. First off, I want to make sure this thing will run. Also, I know that the deck blade engage cable is broken on it, so I will have to replace that as well. And obviously I'm going to Loctite all the bolts around the engine here to see if I can prevent them from backing out again. So these things, I don't know what it is, but they love backing out on you. I don't think I'll even have to do too much to fix it. I just think I've got to potentially take the flywheel off to get to those 2 bolts. Or maybe I can just dab some Loctite in and just not lock them out a little bit. I don't think it's blown. I don't think it's leaking oil, or will be leaking oil after I do that, so we'll see. I'll go ahead and take the hood off, and we're going to get under the mower, jack it up, and go ahead and tighten up those 4 mounting bolts, which I probably end up putting Loctite on as well. just to prevent them from rocking back and forth on the motor. We'll see what damage there may be to the frame as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so let me show you what I have done. I have done my best to tighten this up. The actual little oil, what's this thing called? The drain plug. These cheap drain plugs that leak all the time. Actually was out of its little slot here, and so that's probably where all the oil leaked out. So I did my best to tighten up that drain plug. We're also gonna see if this thing works in terms of the throttle cable and all that good stuff. I don't know, honestly don't even know if it's connected right now. I don't really see anything moving on it. Oh yeah, I don't see the throttle cable moving. So, because it's off its thing up here actually. So I need to mount that up a little bit better in order for that to work properly. So let me do that really quickly. So hopefully we can get some choke action and whatnot going on here. I wonder if that's where the choke comes in. But here, let me show you. Man. So let me get some carb cleaner. I just want to see if this thing will kick over and run for us. Now that I have the proper amount of oil in it. So let's see. And I also have a little bit of fixing to do on the park brake. So it will crank. It just won't stay running, except on starter fluid. So that's a good thing. And I don't have any issues with it starting there. Obviously the Kohlers seem pretty bad about having a weak starter. Because I've tried to do the Husqvarna over that. It's got the same engine on it. I couldn't even get it to turn over. It was so weak. Probably a compression release issue. Anyways, I've seen a bunch of other issues with it as well. What am I going to do now? I am going to see if I can fix this throttle cable real quick. If I can get this throttle cable to where it'll work properly and not have to get another one, then we'll do that, and then we'll continue on here. Like I said, I want to get the choke and everything working on it like it's supposed to as well. It just looks like it needs a little help in terms of getting it to where it'll work right. And so once I get that situated, we'll continue on here. Alrighty, also I replaced the throttle cable. I also put some gas in here. I didn't realize it didn't have any gas in it, which would probably explain why it wasn't running. Although I thought I remembered it having gas in it. I think I had it mixed up with the Husqvarna. So I'm going to throw the choke on. You can see the choke is on. Push this down and see if we can get it cranked. Not with that. Alright, so let's see if some carb spray will give it some encouragement here. It did give it a little encouragement, but it didn't give it enough. So alright, so like I said, I think I'm having an issue with the main jet and the carburetor. So now I'll pull it back in the garage and see if we can get this carburetor off and fixed, and hopefully we'll have a running Kohler here in just a minute. Alright, so we're going to take this carb off and see if we can fix the fuel leak on it, and also fix the main jet. I found it had a fuel leak after I messed with it a little bit here. I think it's leaking down at the right down here at the bottom here. Two 10 millimeters, take off this cover, and that gets us to the carburetor. Which you should be able to slide right off here. But what you have to do first, it looks like, unless I can take these bolts off. That one actually is loose. Wow. Let's see. So what I got to do now is take this little fuel thing off, which is I think another 10 millimeter. I'm going to unplug it right here as well. There we go. It is not a 10 millimeter. Alright, so let's see. That is super loose. Wow. Let me do a little bit more investigating here, and let me show you the proper way to take it off. I just knew how to take that cover off. I've never done a Kohler Courage carburetor, so we're going to see what we can do here. Alright, so let me show you all. So the ground bolt actually was holding on this, the ground wire, and also it's a second mount for the carburetor. And so I was able to take that bolt off, and that loosens this up, and I was able to twist the carburetor around past the little plate here to get it off, and it just slides right off. Now we're going to take off the throttle and the choke linkage and the fuel line, so just hang with me here. So we'll do the choke first. It should be relatively easy. Let's see. Let me take off the fuel line first. There we go. Oh geez. What way do I? There we go. Alright, choke's off. Now, let's do the actual throttle. There we go. And then the little secondary governor spring is off now. Okay, so we're off, and I think I've got a leak past the needle and seat on it. I also think I've got a clogged carb. So let's see what we've got. I'll put it on the bench over there, and we'll see what we got. All right, so I have the carburetor off. And I'm looking up in the main jet, and the main jet looks like it is got some clog action going on in it. So all it was a 1/2 inch. Took this off and got what we needed off there. I guess that's the anti-backfire solenoid. I'll lube that up a little bit so it'll run a little bit more freely. Oh, it was stuck in the open position, so but I'm going to take some carb cleaner and just spray it inside here. Take off the needle and the seat. So take that off. I'm just going to make sure that I'm getting good spray action through there, which is good. And then I'm getting, let's see what we got here through the Alright, so we're getting good. We're getting good spray action through the carburetor as well, through the main jet. Wonder if the side jet looks good. Yeah, that looks good too. That looks good. So everything looks good on it. I'm wondering if the needle and seat gave out in it. And if that's the case, then y'all know what I do whenever I have a needle and seat issue. I just get me a new carburetor instead of trying to fight this one all the time. So bowl looks to be okay as well. So what I'm going to do, I'll just pop everything back in. And hopefully it'll work. We'll test it out here in just a second. So we'll close it. Looks good. I wonder if my issue with just got some stuff bent up right here, right? So I wonder if my issue is I just need to clean this off. Because it seems like there's a lip or something on it here that it wants to try and get past. Might see if I got another gasket or something along those lines to fit under here too. It seems like it's leaking up around here. Not so much into the carburetor, although it wouldn't run except for on choke. So and it didn't look like it was leaking around the bowl either, so I wonder if I clean this off right here like I did just now and tighten it up, if that'll eliminate the issue that I had with the leaking. I'm hoping so. I don't want to tighten it up too much. I might just pop it back on the mower and see if that'll fix the leaking on it. If not, we'll have to go a different route. So let me pop it back on the mower and see what we got. So this carb bolt was damaged enough to the point where they had, I guess, tightened it, and it just doesn't seal properly. So what I did, I've got another Kohler Courage out there that I took a carburetor off of. So I'm just going to test this out. It's not leaking from what I can tell. I had to replace this fuel line too in between the fuel filter and the carburetor. So let's see if this does the trick for us. Running better than nothing right now. Alright, so as you can see, it's running. It may not be running great, but it is running, which is a start, and the transaxle is moving. So that's better than nothing. We're getting there, slowly but surely. I'm gonna have to clean this carburetor out because it's been in that Husqvarna for a while. Oh, the thing might be so sensitive that I got to run the air filter on it. I don't know. I might try that, but look at all the oil that got on the exhaust from the valve cover gasket. It's just amazing. Okay, so we're running. It's better than nothing. And we'll continue to work here. See what time, put the air filter back on it and see if that makes any difference. If it doesn't, we'll just keep on working. I will probably take the carburetor back off and clean it out and put it back on just to see if I can fix it that way, or I might just let it run for a little while and run some seafoam through it and see if I can dislodge it that way. One of the two. Obviously I've got to replace the valve cover gasket on it and also get all this water, or get all this mess washed off the top of the motor. So that's going to be kind of the next order of business after I can get it to where it will actually run somewhat decent. And we'll revisit here in just a second. Alright, so let me show you. It's not, I got it back together. It is running better than it was. Still surging a little bit, but now I want to go ahead and investigate the deck to see if I can potentially figure that out. I might have to put choke on it to crank it. maybe not. So I might still have a little bit of a blockage in the main jet. I'll check the valves to make sure they're in good shape before I continue. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab this cable here, which I took off of another mower. This cable is the blade engage cable, which this blade engage cable in this mower is broken, but the mechanism still works. They had rigged the blades to where they are completely on all the time. So now I'm going to see if I can figure out how I can properly put the cable back on it, if you know what I mean. So it's really easy to take off these MTD decks. It's just a mounting point on this side, a mounting point on the other side, and then you have your clip in the middle here, which they have put some sort of nail device. But it still serves the same purpose. If I can get it off. There we go. Just pop that off and we should just be able to drag this deck out. Like so. Now let's figure out what they did here. So they have these blades where they're permanently in the on position, somehow or another. So I've got to figure out where the pivot point is. Obviously clean all this mess off the deck first, because I got to figure out, I think it's the same setup as the 42s. I've just got to figure out how they've got it set up, because obviously they've got the blade brake all jacked on this side. And so let me clean this up and let me see how they have everything in here, and we'll try and undo the wrongdoings and set this thing back straight again. Alrighty, so I found the ingenuity, so to speak, that they did with this thing. What they did is, this spring is not original. What they did is they put the spring in the area where the blade engage cable usually goes. As you can see, they put a nut right there and pulled this spring back so that the blades would stay on all the time. I don't know how they cranked the thing, because with the Kohler Courage starter being so weak on it, like I said, I don't know how they cranked the thing up the way that it was. But all the rest of it looks like it is intact, which is a good thing. Like I said, I don't know how. Oh, they got the, I think they got the, well, I'm not sure. I might have this pulled so far back that it's not enacting the blade brake on this side. I'm not quite sure. Or maybe it's just frozen up. It's broken. That's what it is. It's actually broken. So I might have to take that side off. In order for this to actually work properly. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So the next order of business, I just got to take a bolt out and get this cable out. And then I'm going to go ahead and put it back onto the mower, because I would like to test it out before replacing the blades on it, which, as you can see, are completely and utterly trashed on it. I'm going to see what route I need to go to get the blades replaced on this. But let me take this nut off, get the spring out, and then I'll show you all how to put the new blade cable on it. What I've got to do is I've got to take the battery back out of it. I think they did a little bit of wiring rigging in order to get everything to work right too. I'm not quite sure. I gotta take the battery back out of it, and then I can show you all how to put this cable back on it, and hopefully get it to work right. All right, so I've got the valve cover off of this thing. All it was a bunch of 10 millimeters to get it off. What I usually do whenever I do a valve adjustment on any engine is set it on jack stands. That way the oil, or at least on an overhead valve engine, that way the oil ends up going backwards on it, right? So the specs I found were anywhere between a 3 or around 5 thousandths for a Kohler Courage engine. So we're going to go with that. And it's pretty easy. You have a 10 millimeter. You loosen the nut. You got your feeler gauges right here, which I've got set to 5 thousandths. I'll show you the intake. Usually what I do, and it hasn't failed me once, people say top dead center, top dead center. If the exhaust valve is closed, the intake valve is open. Just make sure it's not on the compression release stroke. And you can stick your feeler gauge in there. And you can see it's decent, but I could tighten it up a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set y'all over here, and we'll tighten up the valve a little bit. Oh, that light is blinding, isn't it? Y'all can get the gist of it right there. So I got a 10 mil. We're getting 5 thousandths. We'll show our 7 thousandths here. So since I've got the valve cover off already, I'm just going to tighten it in just a smidge. There's a T15 Torx on the inside of this. Loosen it. Then you tighten your 10 mil up a little bit. It don't need much. Needs a little bit more. Again, not even an 1/8 to a 1/4 of a turn. We're getting closer. Kind of about what I want. 5 thousandths is on the high side. So let's check 3 thousandths to make sure it goes in pretty easily. And it does. It's right in line. So that's how you do that on the intake. Now all I'm going to do is simply turn it and have the exhaust valve sticking up while the intake valve is out. Now y'all saw, I think I showed you, it was running okay, but let's see. I was right here on it. It was running okay, but it seemed like it was a little difficult to turn over, almost like a Briggs Intech. And so that's why I'm going through this process. Number one, just to make it hopefully a little bit easier to start. Number two, The valve cover gasket, I'll show you in just a second, was leaking just like on any Kohler Courage that you'll ever find. And so I went ahead and might as well kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. Let's make sure the 3,000ths will fit in here. Yeah, so we're right on the money. I'm between 3 and 5,000ths, which is perfect. You can see where, obviously I've taken the valve cover off, but you can see where I have that down there for the valve cover gasket where it was leaking. It's leaking all in the exhaust. It's smoking everywhere. I've also purchased some Loctite thread locker, which I will be using on these sump bolts. Every single one of them is going to get some thread locker. And while I'm at it, while I've got the deck off and everything, I'm going to be under it, and I'm going to take off each individual bolt for the engine, and I'm going to thread locker those as well. That way the motor doesn't rock, these bolts don't back out. I'm not going to put them on the valve cover gasket bolts, but what I am going to do to the valve cover gasket is clean it off a little bit more than it is. And after that, what I usually do, and it's never failed me yet, is I'm going to put some high temp red RTV gasket silicone on it. And I put it on there pretty good too. So whenever I put it on there, I'll just put a nice little bead around the entire thing. Pop it on there. I let it sit overnight. So a good 8 to 10 hours is good enough. Elevate it on jack stands just like this. Let it dry up, harden up. And that's plenty of time just letting it sit overnight. This is the last thing you do for the day before you go in for bed. You'll be fine when you wake up in the morning as long as you get, you know, a reasonable amount of sleep. I put the RTV on to the gasket cover here. I'm just going to make sure everything's dry on it before I put it on there. And then just stick it on there and put my bolts back on and just tighten them up with a little bitty impact and just let it sit. And usually that cures the problem, and then you don't have to worry about replacing them cork gaskets that are notorious for leaking all the time. So that's what I'm going to do. You're going to catch me tomorrow morning. I believe I've gotten the oil leak fixed over there by the dips or the drain for the oil. The carburetor is running, or the carburetor seems to be fixed. It seems to be smoothing out the more that I run it, which is really, really good. I'm happy to see that. And then, what is it? Last but not least, what else am I looking at? Oh, well, we'll put the deck back on it. I'll show you how to actually properly put the cable in. We'll put that cable in tomorrow as well. So, busy day. I'm going to put a couple of tire tubes in the front as well. The backs are good. And obviously wash it off as well. I'm going to try and make this a one-parter for y'all. So, hang in there. Alrighty, let me show you what I'm doing. I got the thread locker. And so I've already done all the ones that are exposed, the bolts. I want to get the ones under the flywheel also, but what I'm going to do is, this one was one that was loose, and so I'm just loosening it up. Got some of this Loctite thread locker 271. I just put a little dab on there of thread locker, so just about like that. Just somewhere on the threads, you know. And I have been going around like this and just kind of putting it in there. Actually, sorry, I think I had the camera a little bit too low. And then I'm just popping it back in with an impact. It says it sets fully cures within 24 hours, so. And so I've gotten all the ones that are exposed. Now I'm going to try and get the ones under the flywheel. I have 2 in the front and 2 in the back. So I'm just taking this fan shroud off, which it's already partially broken, but an impact, which is probably going to be a half. Is this a half? This is a 9/16. Some either metric or a 5/8 here. Let me see what we got. Yeah, it's metric. 13. Fifteen millimeter. It's on there pretty good. 15 millimeter. Remove your fan shroud. Flywheel key looks good. I'll show you that real quick. There's your flywheel key. Looking good. And now, what a lot of people do, including my friend Terrell Fixes All, he just puts that down there, gets a pry bar and a hammer, just pries up on it, and then hits it with a hammer. I have my good hammer somewhere. Let's see if this one will do it. No, I need to get my better hammer. Let me go get my better hammer and we'll pop this off. That way I don't mess up anything else. I don't want to round off that bolt to the point I can't get it back on. But we're going to pop the flywheel off, and we're just going to take those other 4 bolts out with the Loctite, and we'll get those next. Alright, so let me show you the bolts that you'll find under the flywheel. It's those 2 right here in the front. There's 2, let me get you off the tripod. There's 2 under the starter. Number 1 and number 2 is back there. There's 2 on the back side here, and then there's 1 over there. It's not necessarily under the flywheel, but you don't really see it, or at least I didn't see it, right there on the other side of the dipstick. So I put some red and tacky, or not red and tacky, but thread locker Loctite on that. I went ahead and put the flywheel back on. This is the hammer that I use right there in order to take off flywheels. The regular hammer just doesn't do unless the flywheel is barely on there. So now the next order of business is I'm going to go ahead and put the I'm going to wash the engine off before I put the engine cover back on it. I'm going to go ahead and put the tire tubes in next. So I'll put the tire tubes in next. I'll do that off camera. In addition, off camera, I'll show you. I'll do the mounting bolts for the I'll do the mounting bolts for the engine down here too. which are 4 of them. They're really easy to get to, believe it or not, on these. So it's 1 right there, 1 right here. Number 3 is right there. Pardon the light, right there. And number 4 is on the same side. I could access all of them with the deck on. It's actually that easy. Now I have the deck off, I have amazing access. And then a 5/8. 5/8 impact, got them off. So I'm going to put the thread locker on those. That'll secure hopefully all the oil leaks that we have. I'll go ahead and put the tire tubes in, and then I'll rejoin you whenever I put the deck back together. So let me show you all the difference between the old blades, which are these. Look how eat up these things are. Wow. And the new blades, which have changed their mulch. They're just regular mulching blades now. These were like the high class 3-in-1 something or another blades. They had a weird adapter on them though, but I'm wondering if they're the original blades still, because the blade nuts are hard to take off, but they came off. I did not have to cut them off like I have the past couple of spindles that I've had on these. So that was good. Like I said, I put the blades on. Any way you look at it, these 46-inch blades are pretty expensive. Even online, they were around $30-ish, and then I didn't want to wait a week or week and a half to get blades, so I just went ahead and bit the bullet and bought them at Lowe's, and they were $40. That was the cheapest set I could find, but these others are about as good as trash, so we'll go ahead and take those off, or put them in the trash. And I'll turn the deck over, and what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put the deck back on, take that spring off that I mentioned. Here, I can probably turn the deck over here real quick for us. Take that spring off. All I'm going to do off camera, I already scraped the deck off as well, is this spring right here. I'm going to take that 10mm bolt off and take it off. Like I said, that was an add-on after the blade cable broke on it. So I'm going to take care of that. And it looks like that blade brake is working now, but I'll take care of that. We'll get it back under the mower, and then I'll show you how to put everything back on it. Alrighty, I wanted to do the best to show you of how to put this new cable in. I've got the new, well, new to me / working cable right here. Believe the 42 and the 46 are the same. I didn't have the old one to go by, so we're going to test this out. I don't know what I can show y'all because it's really tight down there, but let me see what I can do. So I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but your Z-bend goes right, there's a hole right up here where the Z-bend goes for the oh, y'all can't see anything. Here we go. You see that hole that I just am moving right there? That hole that I'm moving, that's where your Z-bend goes. So this is where this goes on your for your cable. And then it clips down right there where you see this. It clips. This is where the clip goes. Right? And then there's another area that you clip it. You run it across over here, and then you clip it into this clip right here, and then you're able to run it down to the mower deck, down through like this gap right here. So that's what I'm going to do. It's very, very difficult to film. I wanted to show you. That's what I was going to do before I did it. I will show you the completed setup once I get it in there. Alright, so now I'm going to wheel the deck over here and put it back under the mower. Shouldn't take too long to do. And before I do that, I wanted to show you, this is where your spring is going to go for your tensioner. And I've also lubed up the little mechanism right here that engages and disengages the blades. So that's what I'm kind of in the process of doing as well. I want to make sure all of this works like it's supposed to. Alright, so I did that, and I also put the little clip right here where it mounts, right here on the, where that spring is, where that spring mounts at. It goes under the belt, and now let's see if I can engage it and disengage it properly. No, I just broke that cable too. Darn it. Oh. Oh, darn it. Okay. Well, let me see what that cable was already rusted anyways, so it doesn't surprise me that it didn't work. Oh, man. Let me get another cable. I hate to keep cannibalizing lawnmowers out there. Let me get another cable and see if it works. Like I said, it doesn't surprise me that that one busted because of how rusty it was. Because it really shouldn't take that much in order for it to engage. But that's the gist of putting one of these on. It just didn't work in this case. Let me see what I can come up with, and we'll see if I can get that cable fixed. Okay, so we have the deck and everything back on it. I put a good cable on it. It's the same sequence. I just didn't need to show you twice on the video. So I'm going to crank it up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fix the issue with the park brake. I'm curious as to how I might fix it. One other thing that I did is I took the headlight wires off because for some reason they're live all the time. I cut one a lot further back than I cut the other wire so that they don't touch each other. They shouldn't have any issue because I blew the fuse back here in the back trying to fix that. The new tire tubes are also in it. I don't think I mentioned that. Gosh, they had plugged it twice right here trying to keep the air in it. This mower didn't really lead an easy life, I don't think, before it came. It's not terribly beat up though, thankfully. It's a little nose cone damage. Nothing really detrimental though. And then have a little split in the deck right here, but that's it. Apart from that, it looks pretty good. So I'm gonna put y'all down on the tripod, crank it up. Should be a warm start too, so it shouldn't take too much to crank. This thing right here provides a fit until it warms up. go for a ride, see if it'll stay on. This is kind of operated like the Craftsman hydrostatic. See, now you hear it smoothing out a little bit. You know what? Let's see if the blades work. That's good. Let's go for a ride. Remember, it's got mulching blades on it too, so it shouldn't kick out a lot of anything, really. Reverse. Somebody's bypass. Maybe not. Forgot. This has got the reverse button on it. So, I mean, it's running and cutting, which is good. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and spray this all down with some purple power and just give it a nice wash, get most of this oil residue and stuff off of it. I might let it cool down for a little bit before I do that. And give it a wash. I'm just going to let it run for a good little while. Then we'll take it for a cutting spree after I level the deck with the new blades on it. And you know, as long as everything checks out with that, then we'll let her ride like it is. I think we'll have a very good riding mower here. I'm a little worried about, not worried, but you know, the whole Kohler Courage deal. I'll let this thing sit overnight, crank it up in the morning, and make sure that it runs good again. It just seems like it really doesn't like cold starts. Although I adjusted the valves right and all that good stuff, and maybe running it after I test mow it today is going to help it out. So let me go ahead and clean it up, sort everything out really quickly. The way that you adjust the deck, get something. What I use is 2 oil filter boxes. You get on a leveled ground, and you have this adjustment nut right here on the left side of these MTDs, and you just adjust it up and down until you get it to the correct height. Once you get it to the correct height, you're in good shape, and you just let it ride. after that and be cutting pretty level. That's the only adjustment on this deck that I've seen, apart from the adjustment in the front here, which I don't think I'm going to worry with because it's sitting in a good position with the front of the deck down a little bit, almost like a spoiler setup, so to speak. So that's good. Like I said, I'm going to wash it and then we'll get back to working on it. We're very, very close to being done though, very close. So I wanted to show you something. I'm still working on the Troy Bilt here. I've taken pictures of it and I'll clean it off. It seems like it's running all right. I don't know if I'll be able to fix the whole parking brake situation on it, but I'm not terribly worried about that. I wanted to show you that I have a potential reason as to why this thing was surging. May have not been able to get good fuel. Look at the inside of that fuel line. The outside looks good, but the inside was starting to disintegrate, close up. So I'm going to put some new fuel on it, and that hopefully will cure our issue of starving for fuel, because that carburetor is clean as a whistle. So hopefully that'll solve our issue. I'm going to put fuel on in it, and then I'm going to test mow with it. I've already taken pictures of it, and then I'll give y'all a final look at it. Alright, so here's the finished product of the Troy Bilt after I've washed it. I've actually cut grass with it. You can see I've got some grass residue here on the deck. This mower, I believe, is going to go to somebody. He bought the Craftsman opposed twin from me, and I think he just needs something that's a little bit easier to operate, because I think he ran it out of gas, and if you know them Craftsman opposed twins, you don't run them out of gas with the fuel pumps on them. It takes forever and a day to crank back up. So I'm going to give him something that's a little bit easier to operate. Obviously this is a little bit more expensive, so I asked for a little bit more money for it. 46-inch cut. This thing turned out pretty good. It does, like I said, have that little hole in the deck there, which I'm not terribly worried about because it's not a rust hole. It's just, I'd hate to know what somebody hit in order to get that hole in the deck. That's crazy though. But Kohler, you'll hear it run. It is surging some whenever I do have it, whenever it has no load, so I'm sure it's got a low side jet issue somewhere. I've done my best to clean out every port and everything on the carburetor, and so that's the best I believe that I'm going to be able to get. I'll show you where it was sitting overnight, and I'll show you that there are no leaks whatsoever on it. So we got all the oil leaks fixed, and hopefully all the vibration that caused all of the issues with the whole engine turning and all that good stuff fixed on it as well. And also hopefully we'll prevent those bolts from backing out of the sump cover with all the Loctite that we put on it. So I guess without further ado, I'll close the hood, crank it up. Like I said, it does surge without a load on it, but as soon as you put a load on it, you'll hear it with the blades, and you'll hear it whenever I drive with the hydrostatic transmission that that it's fine under load, which is the most important part. The steering's a little loose on it, although it does work just fine. So see, like a worn bushing or something down there, but it shouldn't really affect the operation. I've already started it this morning. I shouldn't have started it, but here's a warm start. And you'll hear it surge a little bit. Let's go for a drive. I'll show you that it stops as soon as you put a load on it. You hear it smooth out. And then you take the load off of it. Then you put the blades on, and it runs just fine. Reverse. And here's the thing about the surging. I wanted to fix it, but off camera yesterday afternoon I had difficulty with the carburetors on it, and both carburetors are doing the exact same thing. So, but the carburetor that I had put on it off of the Husqvarna out there, that has the one that has the crack block on it, I had done cut with it and done everything to it, and I go get some gas in my gas cans, come back, and I see stuff seeping under the floor. I had a little bit of gas in it, and the needle and seat let go on it. It's been sitting out. It's probably been sitting with gas in it for years, and of course I put it in here and the needle and seat breaks on it. So I got the old carburetor out that I had to put the bowl and the bowl nut with the anti-backfire switch on it in order for it to work, because the old bowl was leaking through the anti-backfire solenoid and it needed a new gasket and everything. So I got it to where it wouldn't leak or anything like that, and I got it to where it was running as you see it. It will run, like I said, it runs just fine with the load. It's not chugging gas, because I had maybe about a quarter of a tank and it used maybe about half of it on my front yard. So it's not chugging gas, thankfully. I put a fuel shut-off switch on it just for the heck of it. And it seems like I put a fuel shut-off switch on it, and that's when it all started acting up on me, which is weird. But the fuel filter was clean. I got new fuel line on it. Oil's changed. What else did we do to this? We had to put... Also, I put off camera, I put a blade guard for the deck belt, or a belt guard for the deck belt, so that it wouldn't come off, because this belt was a little bit stiff, but it's still in good shape, just from where it had been engaged all the time. And 2 front tire tubes and a new battery. So I've got $150 in the mower, and then I have probably another, let's see, probably another $40 in it. I don't really have a lot of money in this one, believe it or not, and really not a lot of time. Basically 2 days knocked this out for me, and obviously not 2 8-hour work days, but 2 just regular days. So yeah, I probably have about $200 in the mower. I'll get the equivalent of $600 for it, because I'll get the other Craftsman back, make sure that opposed twin is good. I might have to put a new coil on it. I'm not sure. I'm going to cut the entire yard with it, make sure it's good, and then I'm going to sell that one back off for probably $500. So I'm going to ask about $100 for the difference between those 2 mowers, because that's about all this mower's worth around here, is about $600 at this point, with it being a 2009, not in perfect shape, but in decent shape overall. So, like I said, I wish I could fix the surging issue, but I'm cutting my losses because I don't want to keep breaking open that carburetor and mess it up, the seals and stuff like that on it, so that I couldn't get it to where I could fix it anymore. I've got a good, decent carburetor. Runs fine under load, which is the main goal. Obviously, we want to fix it so that it would run well all the time, but it's a Kohler Courage. The fact that it runs is a miracle. Albeit it runs fine with no leaks, so apart from the surging with no load on it. So hopefully y'all enjoy this video. I only made it a 1 part because it's a little over an hour long. I try and keep them under an hour, but I didn't feel like this needed to be a 2-part video, just because there's a bunch of little fixes on it, you know. So I appreciate y'all watching as always. You can catch me at Ellis Mowers 09 on Instagram and Facebook. What do you think about these Troy Bilt XPs? Let me know. They seem like they're they're a glorified MTD, but they seem like they're a little bitty step up. Or I think these things were about $20-something $100 new, weren't they? Roughly. If anybody's got one. But this is in good cosmetic shape. I'll give you one look around before I end the video. This has that little nose damage there, and then that hole in the deck that I showed you a little bit earlier. But apart from that, oh, with new blades. So I have about probably 225 to $30 in this thing. I'm sorry, forgot the blades, but just try and give you a breakdown of the cost, showing you that, you know, you don't just get them and then just magic happens a lot of times. But anyways, I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.